Yes, I must say that maybe I was just one of the lucky women to have been at home for the whole time that I had my children. 6 of them I had never worked. So after the loss of my last child, then November 9th, 1956, I went looking for a job and got a job. And I went straight to the union, which was headed by a woman, the Government Workers Union, Lucy Mvubelo. Those are the women who were in our forefront with the trade unions. For the African workers, it was Lucy Mvubelo. For the colored workers, it was Rose Jardine. For the white workers, it was Johanna Cornelius. But these three groupings were in the same building and working from the same building. So they sent me to go and look for a job at a certain factory, and I got there and I got a job.
And you describe it as being very difficult. Of course, there was a tremendous amount of pressure on all of the workers to finish so many garments in a particular period of time.
Yes.
But you did so well, though,
and
Emma.
And the language of,
the abuse,
how people were spoken to. And this was during the time of job preservation, when certain kinds of jobs were reserved for other persons who are not black like you. And you had to produce so many garments a day. I must say I wasn't good at it. I'm like a perfectionist, you know. I wanted to do my work perfectly. Therefore, I could not produce the number of garments which were expected of me. I never understand why it was I wasn't fired from my job. Instead, I've remained in that factory for almost 20 years and ended up being like a supervisor there. But on production, at the very beginning, I must admit, I wasn't very good. And I was taking exception the language which was used when speaking to the people. It wasn't pleasant at all. And the jobs which were reserved for other persons were very simple jobs which anybody could have done.
Emma, you fought a long battle to reduce long working hours and also for like an unemployment insurance fund. Is that where it all started? Did you look around and did you see the injustice and you thought to yourself, I need to do something about it, and that's why you then started and joined the unions?
Yes, you just saw the unfairness of the whole thing. And why other people had to be treated differently. And the amount of salary people were paid. There was a time when people were earning something like 10 rand 50 cents, you know, in that equivalent. And it was just a penny short, a cent short, to make you to qualify for your unemployment insurance, which will make you qualify even for your maternity benefits if you were to expect a baby. And therefore you had no one to talk to. We would start with a go slow, hoping that when you go slow, someone will understand what you are trying to talk about. I was like supported by the workers. The workers will always say, Emma will speak on our behalf. And management on the other side will take an exception because now I was like a supervisor. I don't know whether they regarded me part of them, but this was never shown. But we fought for that until we got the qualification of being members of the Unemployment Insurance Fund. And people could now get their maternity benefit rights and, everything that you need to qualify for. Even the hours of work as well had to be reduced from whatever they were to that number of hours, which was suitable and meeting people's needs.
So, Emma, these were small victories along the way, and the unions were very powerful in those days, as powerful as they are today. But you were never, it was never a political thing for you. You were always fighting for the rights of the worker. Do you think there was a greying of that area? As I said, based on your book, I mean, you spoke about the ANC and the women wearing their black skirts and their green shirts, and for you there was a sense of comfort, but it was never political for you, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. At that time, I attended the 1956. It was in Kliptown when the ANC met in Kliptown. I attended that. And for me, nothing was actually political. And up until this day, I never say I'm interested in women's rights or men's rights. It's always human rights, So this is what one has been focusing on, to say anybody who is human needs to be treated as a human being.
Yeah. So in 1975, you took up a position as the first General Secretary of the Commercial, Catering and Allied Workers Union of South Africa. And as I said, you did a lot of incredible work, and you worked with outstanding people that you mention in the book. But in November 1981, you were arrested. You were sleeping in bed, at home with your family, and there was a knock on the door. Can you describe that to us, please?
Yeah, I was selected to start this union, and I worked with a man called Morris Kagan. I always refer to him as my university,
yes,
because he taught me so much. Coming from the Garment Workers Union, going to commerce was a big difference for me. So he taught me a lot. And there's another young man who came and worked with me, Alan Fine. And it was very good to have them working with me. But the main important thing here is that in 1981, when we got arrested, I was working very closely with Neil Agat, and we were arrested on the same day. I thought it was just the two of us. I didn't know that there were many others that were arrested. I always regret, I stated in my book, that he waved at me, and for me it gave me some, fulfillment that I'm not the only one who's arrested. Having been woken up very rudely by a group of many, about 10 or more white men, as though I have stolen, and yet I had not stolen anything. And then driven to our offices, and our offices at the time were in Khoso House, which is where Archbishop Desmond Tutu had given us accommodation as a union. And from there, then we were taken to prison with many other people, and later to know that he died. And all what we went through in detention was horrible.
He was the first white prisoner to die in detention, wasn't he?
Yes, as far as I can recall, he was. I don't know if any other. As far as I can recall, yes, he was.
Neil
and that
Agat.
was the reason of writing the book, was for therapeutic reasons, because so much had happened in one's life, and there was a time when I actually even forgotten my second daughter's name. I was sitting, because it's solitary confinement. You're all by yourself all the time. And how I call them and talk to them as though I see them. But I couldn't remember my daughter's name. So that was another torture for me. And again, someone slipped in the Rendile mail for me on that particular day. I wondered why, and they wanted me to read and know that Neil Agat had died. So it was a killer for me whilst I was in detention.
You were in solitary confinement for 6 months, Emma.
Yes.
And during those 6 months, you had no idea why you had been arrested?
No.
You were never told why you were arrested?
No.
Your family was never told why you were arrested?
No.
And you were just kept in you were moved around. Yeah.
When you go for being questioned and tortured, there was a time when I enjoyed that because it was like an outing from the solitary confinement. Just that you have been taken out of your room and gone there to be questioned, to be, harassed. At times it felt like it's a better outing than the solitary thing of being on your own all day. Others were lucky because maybe they had Bibles. I made a mistake on the day of our being arrested. A man was standing next to the Bibles. I'm sure you've read that in the book. And this man said to me in Afrikaans, S.J. Akomi. And I said, yes. Thinking that he meant, am I a communicant? I'm an Anglican.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he meant that, am I a communicant? Do I take communion? That's why I said yes. And he said, I meant that I am a communist, and therefore I went to the cells without a Bible. So I had nothing to keep myself busy with. It was just counting my fingers and toes all the time.
Emma, we're going to take a break. I want to continue with this discussion and just the impact that it had on your life. Please do stay with us.
Okay.
101.9 Chai FM.
Good morning. I have Emma Mashinini on the line. We're talking about Emma's book, Strikes Have Followed Me All My Life, a South African autobiography written in 1989 and published in England first and then in America, but for the first time this year in South Africa. And thanks to Jay Naidu, who really pushed Emma to bring the book, this very, very important story, to South Africa. And he's actually written the foreword in the book. And Emma, we've just been talking about this experience of yours in solitary confinement, and you talk about how you forgot the name of your daughter. And if you don't mind, can I just read that excerpt from the book? Is that okay?
Yes.
Super. It says, one day, thinking about my children, Molly, who was in Germany, my grandchildren, and Dudu, who was in New York, thinking about their faces and putting names to them, I could see my second youngest daughter's face, and I wanted to call her by her name. I struggled to call out the name that I always called her, and I just couldn't recall what the name was. I struggled and struggled. I would fall down and actually weep with the effort of remembering the name of my daughter. I'd try and sleep on it, wake up. I'd go without eating, because this pain of not being able to remember the name of my daughter was the greatest I've ever had. And then, on the day when I actually did come across the name, the simple name, Dudu, or love, I immediately fell asleep, because it was such a great relief. And Emma, I can only imagine that 6 months in solitary confinement, this was one of many stories, of many things that happened to you that impacted so greatly and on your life. And of course, it has taken you many, many years to overcome the abuse that you experienced during that time. So much so that you went to Denmark for a while for some therapy, but it still continued to plague you. Can you perhaps tell me a little bit more?